Hello, happy Wednesday, and welcome back to the Father-Daughter Experience. Woo!
Woo!
Today we're going to be talking about dating, specifically my dating life and how I kind of got to where I am now and what I'm looking for and what it's like to be a single woman about the town in Austin, Texas. Part of the catalyst for this episode is that over on TikTok at FatherDaughterEXP, my dad and I have been doing this fun thing where on one hand, we do fandom dating or date my fandom, where either me or my dad kind of talk about first impressions of characters that we might not know that much about, and would I swipe on them, or would my dad let me go out on a date with them if he saw them?
We kind of switch back and forth. If it's a fandom I'm familiar with, you kind of do the swipe right, swipe left idea. If it's a fandom you're familiar with, you just kind of spring characters on me, and I just base them off of like what I think I get.
First impressions.
Yeah, first impressions. Yeah. What are the vibes?
But then we've also done a couple where I show my father. I'm currently only on Hinge and Tinder, and mostly just Hinge because Tinder is kind of the Wild West, and I hate it. And we'll talk about that. But I've been showing my dad my Hinge comments. Basically, you have your profile and your photos, and people can leave comments on any part of your profile, and then you can engage with them or not. It's like a little gateway before you actually like start talking to somebody. So, shall we get started?
Yeah, I think a good place to start. I think one of the things that people find interesting about our relationship is the fact that you will actually talk to me about dating. You know, not like obviously like intimate details about all your relationships, but you'll talk to me about, you know, this date I went on or this person I met, or, you know, like you'll talk a lot about Barb's, right? Or you'll talk about like there's this person, or like I was approached by this person at Barb's and like this was really icky, or like this guy came up and was completely gross, or like this person comes over and says hi to me like every time I'm there, but he hasn't hit on me yet, and I want him to hit on me, or those types of things. So I think we talked a little bit about this before recording, and we were saying that, you know, what was that evolution like for you in terms of when you started thinking about dating in high school, or where that came from, and then when you started to feel comfortable talking to me and Mom about dating and potential partners.
So I think the funniest thing when you talk about dating, and I'm sure there are lots of other people who feel this way, but for a really long time I didn't have friends who did, but I was like a lot more of like a late bloomer than a lot of my friends. I mean, I had crushes on like people as young as like 4th or 5th grade, like when you're like, I think they're cute, but like it doesn't mean anything.
Types of stuff.
Yeah, like I'm not going to go on a date in 4th grade.
Right.
But I think in middle school was the first time I really had friends who would have crushes, and then those crushes would become relationships. That was sort of the first time we'd be like, he, oh, like
So-and-so
Emily likes
dating.
Michael, and oh, Emily and Michael are like asking each other out near the lockers, and like everyone would go, like it'd be like a spectacle.
Everybody knows.
Right. But I didn't really have any luck in romance in middle school. But I did have a lot of friends who were very nosy, and middle school was like that first time where I would like tell my friends like, oh, I think like so-and-so's cute, and they would immediately go tell that person, and I was like, what the hell? Like, be quiet, mind your own business. I don't want to do anything about it. I just think that person's cute.
Right.
So then I went to a performing arts high school where the majority of people there were either the boys were gay, or in relationships, or it was mostly women.
I was going to say your school was predominantly female. It was probably like a 75 to 25 ratio.
And I don't. The funny thing is, you know, obviously, like I like men and women and all types in between, but I don't think I really had come to terms with a lot of that, like when I was in high school. I think it was something I was still figuring out.
But you were aware of it.
Yes, and like I had friends. I actually think when I was younger, I had more like of my girlfriends like kind of come to me and be like, I remember in middle school I had a friend who had came up to me and was like, I want to tell you something. And I was like, okay. And she was like, I'm gay. Like I like women. And I was like, okay, cool. And then she was like, and I like you. And like, that's how I figured it out. And I was like, what does that mean?
Right.
Why? I was like, I'm not gay. And then I was like, oh, I do like women. But that's a whole other episode.
A later evolution.
Yeah, but so like I also didn't really date in high school. There were people I had crushes on.
Sure.
but I had a lot of like anxiety about like, oh my God, well, like, but I haven't dated. And now my friends like have had relationships or are in long-term relationships, long-term, like 2 years.
Sure.
A year was long-term at this point.
Right. You stayed together through all of sophomore year.
Oh my God,
so
you guys went to the same high school together. Oh
Right.
my God. Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you talk about that in terms of like the relationship thing, because I think when you were in high school, people used to ask me, like, because obviously out of all of our friends, you are far and away the closest or jumping into the dating pool. And I think a lot of my guy friends who were dads of girls, most of whom were probably still in diapers at this time when you were in high school, were always asking the questions around like, oh, do you not want her to date? Do you want her to date? Like, do you want to keep boys away? And there are those jokes, right? About like, my daughter, I don't want her to date until she's like out of college. And I think initially there was a part of my brain that felt that way, that like I didn't like the idea of you dating in high school. I was just like, no, don't date. Like, boys are like stupid and blah, blah, blah. And like, you know, they're only interested in like getting their hands on you and whatever. And then I started thinking about it and talking to other people about it. And my brain sort of switched over and I thought to myself, well, shit, I don't want you to start dating in college, because then I almost feel like this goes back to like the repetition thing or the practice thing of, right? Like, I don't want your first, you know, real dates or real relationships to really be with college age guys, because I feel like they're even more manipulative or they're like a little bit more experienced. So if they figure out that like you don't have as much dating experience, like they'll take advantage. So then I was like, no, shit, like, no, date these idiots now. Like, date the high school dummies first.
Yeah, well, then that didn't happen.
No, I know, but my perspective on it changed. But I think a lot of the perspectives I had changed, like just even having you going through high school at a place where everybody was so diverse.
Well, I will say it's funny kind of talking about like people preying on like inexperience and stuff. I became like the master of being deceptive about like my dating history, because the cool thing about moving a bunch is that nobody knows like your history once you like hard reset in a new location. So you could just be ambiguous and be like, oh yeah, like I had like a couple things, but like, nah, nothing really ever worked out, because people are so nosy. And I do feel like there is an edge when you like tell people like you're not as experienced as you think. Or, you know, I think one of the worst things I ever got told by like a partner was that like we were out on a date and I kind of did admit like, you know, like I have not really dated that many people. And he looked me in the eye and went, I thought I was just going to be like another notch on your bedpost. And I was like,
apparently we have that in common.
I was like, how terrible. I was like, well, that's not true at all.
Why are you and why are you assuming that about me?
Yeah, well, because I think I said this in an earlier episode maybe, but I'll bring it up again. Like, I am somebody who's gotten a lot more like of the late stage confessions. Like, it's too late for us to do anything, but like well, I always had a crush on you, or oh, I always thought you were pretty, or I always liked hanging out with you. And I'm like,
you were so intimidating.
I know, you're so intimidating. Or even just like I was like nervous, and I was like, okay,
great.
Because the thing is, like, I am tall and like I kind of have like this very like confident aura, but like at the end of the day, like I'm very much like a hopeless romantic and like a big softie when it comes to like dating and stuff and like crushes and like that like sort of like rush of excitement. So I've always thought it was funny, kind of like looking back when people are like, I just thought you had like I was like another notch in your bedpost, or like, or that you just have like a line of people like out the door.
Oh, but you're also missing out, because it's like, where was the shoot your shot attitude? Like,
well, that's the funniest part, is that like it was always these people who like are I always saw as like very confident, and then like they would like send me like a DM on Instagram and be like, I always thought you
like
were
2 years
cute.
after, right?
Yeah, and you're like, what the fuck?
High school, and you're in Kansas, and they're like going to school in Michigan.
Even now, like even after graduating college, I've had some people that like I met in passing and like that I still follow who have been like, oh, like how are things in Texas? Blah blah. Blah. Yeah, you know, like do you ever come back to Kansas? Like I've always like thought you were like attractive and funny, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Right.
Thanks. I was only in Kansas for 4 years. You couldn't have done anything in that time.
Yeah,
so.
But like you say, it's a little tricky. So
yeah, but so. The evolution into how I got like comfortable talking with you guys about it. I mean, honestly, for a while I didn't have that much to talk about, so I was just like, I don't know.
Well, and I think you started obviously talking to your mother more, but then like specifically when like you started talking to me more about it, I think it was to get perspective.
Yeah.
A little bit, but like, why is this dummy doing this, essentially.
Yeah. Because I don't know. I think the difference always for me versus like where my friends are like, I don't tell my parents anything, is that like, I just already talked to you and mom about everything else in my life, like work and friends and what I'm up to. Or I'll call and be like, how do I do this thing? How do I go? Where should I go get my oil changed? Like very like,
Right.
I already like everything else in my life. I already consult you guys on.
Continue to fill in my book of becoming an adult. With
Right,
like,
exactly.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
I just
I
got
don't
to
know this one.
I just got to this new page.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
have
like,
to call in to fill up. Yeah.
how do I make a dental appointment?
Correct. Right. Like things like that. So, I think dating, I mean, so I always try to be clear with my friends that like, I don't tell you guys everything.
Right. We don't want to know everything.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even like the first time I ever like went on a dating app, I was like, I'm not going to tell my parents. Like, that's embarrassing. Like my parents met each other at like a party.
Sure.
But then I like deleted it and was like, that sucked. And then I went back on them like later, like when I was like a junior in college, when we first moved to like Austin. And that's when I got like Bumble, but was also doing like Bumble BFF. So I think that was really one of the first times I really talked to like you and mom about like dating app talking.
Sure, exploring.
Yeah.
I think I think when you were in college, right? So I feel like it was almost episodic for us. Like the way I think about your college experience is very much like you think about, I think the way you can think about watching a show on like Netflix, right? Like season 1 of you going to college was as a freshman. And then we had to wait until like, then, we had to wait a year later for like the next season of you being in like your show, right?
Yeah,
like the KU show.
The cast returning and
some
being
of the
back on
cast
air.
returns,
Yeah.
other
New
people,
scripts,
there's new people
some
because there
characters
was
left.
right. There's rowing friends. There's now friends that people you knew from rowing that are no longer friends. And then it was what people are you dating, but then also us hearing the drama about other people dating,
Right.
and like which of the people that were in your universe or in that season of that show, were really heavy into the dating apps, where you were so your exposure, I think, almost the way that we learned about how you and your friends use those apps was more of like a friend of mine was on this app and just ended up over at like my English teacher's son's house or something like that, right?
Yep.
Like, so you'd be like, oh yeah, so-and-so just ended up hooking up with this guy, or.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like, the weird thing about apps is that like some of them have become much more like Tinder has more of a reputation now for like being a hookup app.
Quick hookups.
But lots of other people have like actually met and like created like very meaningful relationships through Tinder. So it's kind of interesting. I will say I am on the apps right now more for a like just go out, kind of get my reps in, like when I want to go out on a date, like, or like meet someone new and talk. But like I don't like the apps. Ultimately, I think like I would like to meet somebody organically and have that relationship develop that way.
So when we were talking about doing this episode, I'd like written down like questions for myself, and one of them was, what are some of the differences between the apps, and we can kind of get into that, right? Where you're saying like Tinder's has this. I wonder, if you were working for Tinder, if you were just like, yes, we're fine with the idea of like hookup culture using us for these things, or if they're more like, no, we truly want to be a dating app, an app for people to date and meet people. So like, what are, I guess, like how do people circumvent? I'm sure there are plenty of people on there. Like we could talk about your uncle who used to use those apps, or, we're familiar with the way he uses it, which is basically just like a Russian roulette of like, I'm going to swipe right on everybody and see what comes back to me. Or people who maybe write a real profile and say like, not look, here for a long time, not for a good time, like, or things like that, right? Like just.
I don't think that's the saying.
Well, you want to, yeah, it is.
Here, not for a good time.
I think it's I know that the phrase is I'm here for a good time, not for a long time. I think some people flip it around and use it as I'm here for a long time, as in terms.
No, nobody does that.
Okay, so
it shows what you know about modern dating.
No, that's fine. That's what I'm saying. We can get into that. But the other question I was going to ask is like, how often are you exposed to people where they're like, I have somebody I'd like you to meet, versus the apps versus I'm going to this thing.
Yeah.
We went to a comedy night, a comedy dating night, and a guy actually came up to you and was like, I think you're really funny. He wasn't, in my perspective, he wasn't really hitting on you. He could have been.
Yeah.
But he was more like,
he was just like,
I want
thought
to
you
be
were really
friends.
funny. Like, should we talk? And I was like, oh yeah, of course.
Which,
like,
and I mean,
let's
maybe
do
that's
it.
his lead in, but like, talk to me about that. Like, what are the kind of the differences in where you see like the quality coming from?
I mean, I'll be really honest. I think I've only gone on like 3 quality dates from the apps total. When I was in college,
out of how many conversations?
oh, like dozens and dozens and dozens. Like, I mean, lots of them peter out very quickly.
Sure.
Honestly, even now, like I'm so busy in my personal life that like the apps are just kind of like a fun bonus. Like I log in and I kind of like check. And then if somebody is like engaging with me, I'll go back and make an effort to talk to them.
Sure.
But my thing is, I don't want to spend that much time talking in the app before we go on a date. Like for me,
If there's a connection.
yes, because I think a really good example of like an opportunity of a really good conversation but a really bad date is last October. Well, and then I realized there's like a whole deeper connection with my current friend group to this guy. But
No, this is a good place to start because it's a good way to
so
preface it. Good conversation, terrible date.
connected on Tinder and just started like talking and talking and talking, like huge paragraph messages back and forth, like about video games we like and books we like and series, and like, oh, you write, or I do this, and like, what are you into? And it was like, oh, I'm into comedy, and like I film little sketches, and it was like, oh, it was awesome. I was so excited. I was like, this is really fun. So then he was like, let's go out and get like sushi, and I was like, yeah, awesome. And it was awful. It was such a terrible date. So first of all, if you listen to our Why Do Men Lie About Their Height episode, I think I maybe mentioned it, but I am 6'1", and I wore sandals because I knew he was like, he said he was 5'11".
Sure.
On the app.
So you need to.
There's no way he was 5'11".
He's fudging it by at least a few inches.
Because I was slouching when I like kind of like walked up to him, or like I will purposefully, because most of my friends are shorter than me, kind of stand at like a little bit like of a wider stance so that I lower my height by a little bit, just so I'm not always towering over people.
Anybody who is the taller person in their friend group is probably nodding their heads right now because they know exactly what you're talking about when you're just like, I'm going to stand with a wider stance
and like cross my
arms.
Or I'm like leaning on something.
I'm going to lean in.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't seem like I'm towering over everybody else in the group.
So the first thing was that he was very obviously shorter than me.
Sure.
But like more than 3 inches would be that difference, right? I was like solidly looking down.
You're saying from like 5'11" to 6'1".
Yeah.
So 2 inches, and then he was shorter.
I would guess he was 4 inches or 5 inches shorter than me.
Sure.
And like, look, I get it if people don't like measure themselves all the time, or you think you're tall or whatever. Like, I've said it before. If you're honest about your height and we're hitting it off, I don't really care if you're shorter than me. But it was just weird to show up and be like, and I was wearing flats.
Right.
I was like flats. So
Right.
I was like, whoa.
Like gladiator sandals. It's just like,
yeah, it was
like,
just it's literally like where it's like the thinnest little.
Sure.
So I was like, okay. And then we sit down and we're talking, and he's like incredibly rude to the wait staff like the whole time.
Yeah.
He was super like
Red flag.
short with them. And then I hadn't eaten since lunch, and lunch had been pretty early for me that day, I recall. So I was hungry, and I was like, do you want to get like a couple things to share, like a couple rolls? He was like, yeah, let's just do edamame and a California roll. And I was like, well, do you want to get more things? And he was like, well, I mean, like, yeah, but I'm not going to eat them. So, and I was like, okay, well, I might get more, but at this point I'm already like, I don't want to be on this date that long.
To go.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I guess I'm getting McDonald's on the drive home.
Yep.
So we're sitting and like,
just a crispy chicken sandwich waiting for me.
And here's the thing. I love to talk. I don't
know where you get that from.
I know, right? But I like a back and forth. So I think I'm very good at making people feel like heard. Like I ask questions. I'm very inquisitive. I like listening to people, but I also want to talk. Like,
yeah, well, it also
I hope you're going to come back and reciprocate that and say like,
so he
what
was
about
good.
you?
So you were expecting kind of like the long form banter or the banter that you had back and forth via text,
where he was asking questions
where
back.
he was right. So he was more of like I need the time to really think out my responses and respond. And in person, it was just...
In person, he just talked about himself forever and ever and ever. And then I would say things that like I definitely knew about, and he would be like, that's not, I don't think that's right. And I'd be like, no, I know it is. And he'd be like, I don't know. And I was like, okay.
I got to get out a note card and we're going to start Googling stuff.
Yeah, and then he made us split the bill for our one California roll and edamame. And I was like, okay.
I mean, again, this might be where I'm just a kind of old school, but I feel like...
If it was a bigger meal, splitting doesn't bother me because who knows like who ate what, like especially on a first date. But to me, when it's that like meager of a meal, like it should just be one or the other of us paying. Like,
I think then you could be like, if you, because I'm going to say I'm traditional, but I also am enough of a feminist to say like, if you asked him out on the date and you said, hey, I'm going to pay for this, like I asked you out, like this is my treat.
Men in Austin do not like when I offer to pay for things.
No, but like I'm saying like in my mind, like that would be fine, right?
Yeah.
Like if you offered to pay, like that's cool. If you had asked, if you ask me out on a date, like I'm gonna feel like, oh, haha, like that's adorable. Like yes, absolutely. But here's the thing: if you do that, and I feel like it goes either way on a first date. If I offer to pay, or if the guy offers to pay, and you say like, no, let's split it. Or I want to leave the tip. Like, I feel like that's a conversation you can have, but I feel like if he's asked you out on the date.
But it was more that he just was like, it came and he kind of was like, split it. And I was like, yeah, I just want to get out of here. So I don't really like, care, buddy.
I mean, at that point, this goes back to, where we've gone back and forth on some of like your Hinge comments.
Well, those are just fun. I love to share those because it's insane the shit people write, and you're like, do you think I'd go on a date with you after you write that?
I mean, for me, it goes to effort, right? Like I'm seeing a lack of effort, and this goes back to like the idea of these apps, and I feel like it's 100% like. I've been in sales and partnerships like essentially, my whole life. And I feel like it's a numbers game, right? Like I'm going to send like a bunch of like, hey,
what's up?
Love your cat. Messages, right? Like you have like your set number of responses. It's like girl with a cat. I love cats. Girl with a dog. I love dogs. Girl like running on a trail, like love trail running. Like you have your like rapid fire responses that like don't make it. It's obvious you didn't really scratch much below the surface. It wasn't like you read through like the second paragraph of your bio and commented on like, oh, not only do you love cats, but you love the Warrior Cats books, right? Like
I do put that on my Tinder profile.
I was going off of the fact that we were talking about fandoms.
Last week,
and you had said like that was one of your earliest fandoms. But like if you dropped something like that in there, or like loving this first season of Loki, right?
Sure.
And then somebody reads far enough to get there and be like, oh my god, like what's been your favorite part, right? Like enough to say, cool that you're a nerd. I noticed this thing in your bio, really would like to talk more about it, but it doesn't seem like you get very much of that.
No, or I feel when I do get it, like, so I, for the last year or so, have had like let's co-op in Genshin Impact together. And people who know what Genshin Impact is will be like, oh, what level do I need to be at to co-op with you? Like, what level do I have to be at to co-op with you in Genshin Impact? And so I'll be like, oh, I think you have to hit like 14 and finish like this quest or whatever. And some people are like, you'll need to explain it to me more. And then I just am kind of like, honestly, like I barely kind of understand it. I just like vibe my way through the game and like do the side quests and don't care that much about like being a completionist. Like I'm just trying to speed run the story at this point.
Sure.
I don't care about like all of the achievements and stuff, but
you're putting the bait out there.
Yes,
but this is at least an entry point for conversation.
Yeah, but the weird thing that I've encountered is even when I have like my hyper specific things and people engage with it and then I'm like excited because I'm like, oh, a connection point, it feels often like it stagnates there. Like we don't have further things to go on to. Or even if I'm like, okay, so like what about you? Then I feel like conversations die there. And I'm like, well, we started here. Or the thing I think that drives me even crazier is if we hit it off in like a niche area we have overlapping interests in. And then I'm finally like, I don't really want to talk on the app anymore. Like, let's plan a date.
Right.
Then people are like, oh, no. Or they just like unmatch, or they like don't write back.
So,
and I've been guilty of this too, but sometimes it's just because I'm like, I'm actually not interested in going out with this person.
would you say that, do you think it's more, I mean, I'm going to ask a bizarre question, but do you think it's more like, is that more during the pandemic? Like people were like,
no,
just looking for.
It's always been that way.
So okay, here's where my question was going to go. Do you think it's more like that people are just looking for like engagement, like they want to engage and they want to talk to somebody else, or like how many of or like then my brain goes to, we've had a good conversation, this has been going well, I say let's get together. Do you think they're catfish? Like, does that ever cross your mind? Is that still really a thing with some of these apps?
So,
or do you just think people are just like really awkward and they're just like, maybe they're not interested and nobody's got the balls to say, hey, no, this has been great. I'm really like, it's been fun to chat, but like not really interested.
So
you're boring.
Here's like 3 answers for you. Number one,
there's
with
like
the
6 questions.
Yeah.
There, so
number one, I'll answer the catfish one because it's pretty short and sweet. I'm not. So more than ever, like a lot of these apps have like a pseudo verification systems for like ways you can kind of be like, yes, you're that person in your pictures. I don't know how like strict they are at like approving the pictures, to be honest with you, but
sure,
there is a level of assurance there.
Okay.
Also, I think like when I look at people's profiles, there are lots of like telltale signs of if I think an account is real or not. Like sometimes people like only have like very like professional pictures that like don't like no candid like it's normal like you in your apartment or you with your friends or you with your pet or whatever.
It's just you out on a boat looking over.
Yeah, and then like
looking over the
and then like the stuff on their profile is like things I love, tacos.
I feel like you should immediately have your.
Excuse me.
I feel like you should immediately just have your profile burned if you're like, I love tacos.
But like, so it's such a thing. Like in Austin now, sometimes people have like liking tacos isn't a personality trait in like their bios. And I'm like, oh, just like swipe left on those people. Like you don't have to
get salty about it.
But to me, if I see that kind of stuff where you're antagonizing other people on the apps, like in your profile, I'm like, I wouldn't want to deal with you.
Right.
Because here's the thing. I used to be a girl who was like, I'm not like other girls. I'm different. And then I was like, I'm actually like a lot of other girls. Oops. But like something that I do feel like very protective of and that I always look out for that is a red flag for me when I'm looking at men's profiles and actually women's too, because I've seen some women doing it now as well. If your bio is built to basically mock other people who are on the same app as you, I have no interest in talking to you. I already get what your thing is. And it's like that you're above being on the app, but like you're still here. And it's like, okay, at the end of the day, we're both still on Tinder. So how much better than me are you?
Right.
And when you talk and match with those types of people, even if they don't have it in their bio and you like,
you can pick up
match, it's immediately like, so like, what do you want? Because I'm like not looking for anything like that serious, but like bitches love me. And you're like, okay, I'm sure, buddy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's like the catfish answer. I'm not really ever thinking about it that much.
No, just curious.
The next answer. Oh, I don't really remember what you had asked me about.
I don't know. I asked you
I've
asked you a lot of things there. I think what we're just trying to get at is like when the other one was like kind of the loneliness piece. Like how many people do you think we're engaging based on like the loneliness versus like,
so
I just get to talk to somebody.
Okay, here's the thing. So there is absolutely a joke and I'm not above it. There have been times like when after I broke up with my ex 2 years ago now, there was a time like a couple months after that I was just like, I just kind of want to go on dates again. Like we had been long distance. And so like I hadn't been on a date with my own partner for like 5 months.
Sure.
Or not that long, like 3 months while we were like long distance. We saw each other like over a weekend and it was like, cool.
Right.
Bye. So there was like a time when I got on the apps, but I realized like I didn't really want to get back into dating yet. Like, but I was talking to people and it was fun to be like, okay, cool. Like people are still interested in me as a person. Nice. Right. So I think a lot of people have that feeling because sometimes
You just want to feel desirable.
yeah, like attractive or interesting, or that like people want to date me, even if
Right.
it's like not really. Like they just kind of also want that validation of like,
Sure, you get a
cool,
little- you
this
get a little
attractive
bump.
person, we both matched, like that like high buzz. Which is why I think ultimately though, I don't think I'll find my person on an app
Right.
because like I get a much high, like a bigger high from like meeting people in person and being like, oh,
The energy
cool.
is right. You get to feel the energy from the person.
Yeah,
Like,
and-
are they a high energy person? Are they like more low key?
And
Do
again-
you like that they're low key versus if
Correct.
they're high energy?
Or like honestly, I think it takes a lot of time. It's why like the people I have I guess like I have dated somebody last summer where I met her through an app. But ultimately I realized like, oh, well, it's easy to be like out and whoever you want to be on an app, but it's harder to be like out and whoever you want when you live in a conservative college town.
Sure.
And you want to be dating women. But I live in a liberal city, which is where we matched. But I didn't realize at the time she was living
Sure, she was looking
like
for
2.5 hours away.
She knew she would get more matches.
Sure,
in
in a
Austin.
liberal city where there are lots of like young queer people. But like I think that there
Sure.
are.
It's like the idea of like an hour outside of Austin. You can get
all
get very conservative
there-
very quickly. But then
yes.
like you go north for people obviously like I'm going to say towns people really don't know, but you go to like Temple.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Hour north of here.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously San Antonio is a little bit more liberal, but like go west or east of us by like
And
an
it's much
hour,
more of
and
a-
it starts to become
yeah.
a little bit more red and a little less blue.
Mm-hmm. And so I think like it's in Austin specifically, I feel like it is mostly 3 types of people. I'll talk specific. No, I can be pretty general. It's people who just want attention and just like want to rack up like likes and
Sure.
or are looking for hookups is usually what it like those types of people are. Because there are lots of times where I'll match with somebody and I'll be like, what are you looking for? Because I just like to be upfront about it. Because
Right.
I'm like, I would like to date and get to know you. And like, that's what I'm looking for. I'm
Sure.
not looking to hook up with like people on this app.
Right.
And then sometimes people are like, nah, I just want to have sex. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well,
Right.
so be on your merry way.
Good luck.
Not at this station.
Sure.
And then there are people who I think are genuinely looking for connection, but I think are kind of more like me where honestly, I don't have the attention span to really entertain that many conversations at once. So you kind of have to play the game of like, I'm going to try to put my eggs in this basket and hope that they're also putting their eggs in my basket in
Right.
turn. But oftentimes you might say, I really like this person. I want to put my energy into talking to them. And then they don't
fizzle,
pick,
they fizzle out.
they don't pick you to kind of also pursue.
Right. They're not matching that energy again.
Right. So then you're like, okay, well, I'll check out of that. And then the third one is mostly like a with women thing, but there's a lot of girls with secret boyfriends who are like, my boyfriend is like, not secret. There's a lot of ethical non-monogamy in Austin.
Oh, gotcha.
So
I was gonna say, what is
It
that?
was-
What is a
it's-
secret boyfriend?
I say secret
Like-
because
like
their
they're on an-
profile will look like they are
A
a
single
single
female.
queer woman, and I'll be like, cool, swipe, and then we'll match, and they'll be like, oh my god, and we'll be like vibing, having a good time, and then they'll be like, by the way, I have a boyfriend, I hope that's okay, and I'm like, oh, I wish you would maybe put that on your profile,
Right.
because it's a little weird for me to think like we're just hitting it off, because if she hadn't told me that before we went on a date, then I'm like,
You're
well,
still assuming that it's a single female, like a
yeah,
single.
somebody who, because I am looking for my partner.
Right.
I'm not looking to be a part of another relationship.
Sure.
So it's the most like of this. And I think there is sort of a much more visibility being given to like polyamory and
Sure.
ethical non-monogamy than there was when I was even younger. But
Right.
like in Austin, especially, I've noticed it more than ever. Like lots of people have like non-monogamous or like open relationship. And so I think a lot of the apps have become more like, I don't know, community seeking almost versus
That's interesting.
like
Traditional
dating.
Find your partner find your
Yeah.
one-on-one partner.
And I honestly don't think there is an app that is built for, I mean, maybe I haven't given any of them a try, but like maybe like Match.com or like OkCupid are built more that way. But I don't think any of the apps you have on your phone and you're swiping on people are built to really give you a connection. It is meant to be a numbers game. It is meant to be like, how many like fish can you catch in your net, and hope that like one or two of them are like pretty decent and you maybe want to meet them.
I feel like if you logged into any of them, it seems like they're all essentially, I feel like they're all essentially the kind of the same thing with just like different packaging and wrapping around them. So it's like,
everything has a new gimmick.
Sure.
Like
well, Jigsaw. Right. So for people that are very unaware and don't live in Austin, there is a new dating app that is, in I think the beta stages.
It's about to launch in like the next few weeks because I keep getting the emails about it.
Essentially what
Thanks,
this
Mom.
is,
My mom signed me up for the beta so that I can try it out and we can talk about it.
Yeah, we'll definitely
maybe
talk
it'll
about
be
it.
fun and maybe I'll hate it. Stay tuned.
But the whole idea is if you were giving them free advertising, they should help us out. Yeah, sponsor us. But the idea is when you see like their very, very poorly acted commercials, is they have essentially like jigsaw pieces or puzzle pieces over the face of the individuals, and you are supposed to match based on like personality.
Yes, but the gimmick is that the more you talk to the person,
the more their
face
revealed.
is, yes. So you have to talk a certain amount of time, is my understanding, or a certain amount of messages before you get to see that person's face.
It seems very Netflix Love is Blind.
Yes, and I have to be honest, I feel on the fence about it. Looks aren't everything, but I am somebody where, like, I do think personality is more important to me, ultimately. I think there have been lots of times where I'm like, somebody is attractive, and then I talk to that attractive person, and I'm like, I do not like your personality. You suck. And then there are times where I'm like, talk to people where my friends might not be like, oh my God, they're so hot. But I'm like, but they're like cute and dorky and they're nice to me. And like, we have a lot in common. And I'm much more into that than like somebody who looks like they're going to be on like a Playgirl magazine, like chiseled, or even like
what's a lot of those like TikTok things, right? Like they're an 8, but they love Sphinx cats. It's like, well, then they're a 12.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Like,
yeah.
well,
there are things that outweigh physical appearance that are more important to me. So maybe I'll like the app, but I think there is like an edge of
it'll be interesting to see what pieces you're allowed to put forward.
Yes, exactly. Like, what can I give you that's not my picture to kind of like...
Right, just not my face.
Right.
Because
so like how much of a profile is it? How much do I have to write to be able to be active? Because that's the other thing about apps is where you talked about effort earlier. A lot of the times I won't, even if I'm attracted to somebody and I think they're like good looking in their pictures, I won't match with people who didn't put any effort into their bio.
Sure.
Look, you don't need to write your whole life story out, but if you can't write like what you're into at all, like my profile is usually a mix of generic and specific things about me. So like I have like Jurassic Park because it's my favorite movie. I'll be like, oh, you can always find me like watching Jurassic Park, or like now I have like I go to 80s night at Barb's like for fun because like that is a specific thing that is important to me.
Sure.
That like it's fun to have on the table.
And
because
if you're local and you know what that is, you could be like, oh my God.
Yeah, or like, oh my, I've gotten a lot of like, oh my God, like Barb's has 80s night. I had no idea. And I'm like, every Friday, like, yes, absolutely.
See you there.
Well, that's my thing though. Like that's like a fun.
Stop by and say hi.
Yeah, but even like if we go on a couple dates, hit it off, that is someplace where I would like take a date. Because like I'll be like, well, I love Barb's and I know like Barb's
we can go have a good time.
Yeah, because can you hang? Because to me, ultimately, if you can't come out and dance with me, then I don't think we'd work out long term because I want to go out.
This is going to be a part of the package.
It is important to me.
So if I've brought you in, this is like one of my
so like I like to put stuff that absolutely like these things are important. So if we were to go out, you kind of already have a piece of Celia. If you can't even put like a little piece of yourself on your profile for me to be like, okay, this is who Jessica is, this is who like Roberto is, whatever, like your name and your face are cool, but like give me at least one morsel to hold on to.
I think this goes back to what I was saying before
I want to be
about
intrigued.
This goes back to what I was saying before about the numbers game, right? Like you want to find, like you're also putting in effort when you're filling out your profile, right? So you want that matched, right? That's been my big thing, and that's where some of the comments on our little Hinge videos have gotten, where it's like I'm just like a bully for effort. Because I feel like, obviously, being your father, like, I want whoever you end up with to be kind of the same way, like I am with your mother in a way, which is like, I still chase after your mother. Like, I still put in effort. Like, I try and do the things that like I know are going to make her happy. Like, take things like off her plate, because I know, like, again, even after 20 years, like, effort is attractive. Your mother says I'm never more attractive than when I'm doing something, which always makes me crazy. Because if I'm like cooking in the kitchen, your mother wants to come over and kiss me. I'm like, no, like, I'm over like hot bacon. Like, just leave me alone. But that doesn't fade. Like, the idea that effort,
it should always be there.
That effort is attractive.
So
for me, when I see some of these, quick little, again, one of your openings is plan a date for us, right? Like, you could not clear more of a runway for somebody to
write something fun and engaging.
Write something
that could
fun
catch
and
my
engaging.
eye.
Go crazy over the top. Like,
honestly,
like,
yeah, write something nuts.
We rent a hot air balloon.
I literally was just thinking hot air balloon in my head.
Like, because what would be like stupid for a first date? Because we spend the next 3 hours together,
trapped in the air under a big gas fireball.
Just above a gas fireball. Like,
do you have a crippling fear of heights? Right. Let's conquer that together.
We conquer it together by downing an entire bottle of Jägermeister.
Right, exactly.
Like, and then you get to the end and you're like, I'm totally kidding. I would much rather prefer, like, let's go mini golfing and like get dipped cones from Dairy Queen.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think too, like, I'm somebody where I just want to get out and like do things and meet people. And I feel like that even seems like it's asking a lot. Yeah.
All right. So we've seen all of these different things that, like, Austin is the #1 city to date in. And that,
allegedly. I've yet to see it.
Allegedly. So, like, where do you think that falls short for somebody who's actually dating? Like, what are the things that, again, beyond effort, what are the things that you're actually looking for? So your experience dating in Austin, and then, what are you actually looking for?
I've really only gone on a few dates in Austin, and I've actually canceled more dates than anything, because I got, to me, I really do think it just comes down to effort and interest and like follow up and excitement, because I'm somebody who like is on my phone. Lots of people are on their phones all the time. And what I've noticed a lot, that my big pet peeve is with dating, is if it's the day of our date and I like text you in the morning to be like, are we still on? And you don't write back to me, I'm not going on the date. I'm not going to show up. You couldn't text me back in the morning and confirm.
Right. Again, yes, I'm excited.
I
can't wait.
Several months ago, probably around my birthday, I had plans to go on a date to Cidercade, which is like a gaming arcade, with this guy who was actually at a conference that weekend, but it was coming back into town. And he had told me that. But that morning of our date, it was a Saturday morning, I was getting coffee with my friend Mary, and I was like, I texted him to say, like, are we still on? And he was like, he didn't write back. And I was very disoriented, and I was like, I honestly, and it was like dead silence, and time kept passing, and we wrapped up like our coffee date, and she's like, well, let me know if you end up going. And I was like, I guess. But at this point, like, we're like 3 hours out and I haven't heard anything from him. So 2 hours out from the date, I just sent him a message and was like, hey, look, like, you didn't answer me like 8 hours ago. I don't really know if you're even on your way back from Dallas yet. So sorry, like, I'm going to have to just like, I'm going to say for myself, like, I'm not interested in going on the date anymore. And he wrote back immediately and was like, no, like, I'm almost back in Austin. Like, I still really want to go out. Like, let's go. And I just was like, no, I'm sorry. 'Cause I was like, you were on your phone. You couldn't write back to me earlier in the day. You're only writing back to me now
because you think you're losing out on the date.
Correct. But I was like, but if you were that excited and you really wanted to go, there is a level of effort to me beforehand. And honestly, like, I don't want to go someplace and get stood up.
Sure.
So, like, who knows? Maybe it would have been, bless you, the most amazing date ever. But I think for me, I'm not interested in settling. I've seen a lot of friends settle over the years. I've seen a lot of family members like date people where I'm like, why? And I'm just like, I don't want other people to be able to say that stuff about my partners, because I want to be excited and love and chase my partner, and I want my partner to love and be excited and chase me, and I want that to be evident to my friends and family. I don't want to ever have to be like, no, it's like working, but like feeling like I'm fighting for something. So honestly, to me, effort matters the most at the beginning. So if you can't write back to me, if we plan a date and then you go like radio silent, like, okay, it's weird to me. It's disorienting.
It's like the interest meter starts to tick down.
Well, honestly,
like
I feel a little bit like a gold.
I
feel a little bit like a goldfish, and like I forget, and then like somebody will like follow up and be like, "We still on for our date?" And I'm like, I forgot we had a date planned. So, I mean, honestly, maybe I'm too picky, but I don't think there's any such thing when, honestly, my life. This is what I always say to my friends when they ask me like, when am I going to go out? Or like, why don't I like seek out dates as much or whatever, is that my life right now, I really like. I like my routine, and I like my friends, and I like the things that I do, and I like my job, and I like my cats and my apartment and everything. So for me, a partner would need to really add to my life.
Sure.
To me, a partner, dating or longer term, would really need to come and add something I don't have, which would be like support and partnership and companionship and like dates and things like that.
Sure, opening you up to other things that they like to do, and being like, oh, I would never think about.
Take me new places, and I take them places I like, and we like learn and grow together, but not somebody who's like gonna detract and like make me feel worried or like anxious or like, why haven't we talked, but we're going on a date in like an hour. Sure. Or any of that stuff. Cause I'm like, I just don't care to be inconvenienced.
Sure.
To be honest. And again, I like my life quite a bit. So I don't particularly feel like I am missing something by not having a partner right now. So the bar feels very high for me to fit somebody like that in.
Yeah, well, honestly,
and I think that's fine.
No, I think that's perfect. And as your father, I would say those are all of the right sentiments. Yeah, so I think this has been a really good conversation. It's been really interesting, I think, for me to hear some of the kind of the details that I don't know, but like a lot of them I do. Mm-hmm. So no, this has been good. It's been a long episode, so hopefully you hung in there and you listened to everything that we had.
You learned a lot about me.
You learned a lot about Celia, and we are going to look forward to having you listen some more, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Do you want to tell everybody where we are?
We're at FatherDaughterEXP, wherever you social media it up, mostly TikTok and Instagram, though. You can send us an email with any suggestions and topics at fatherdaughterexperience@gmail.com. And you can listen to us currently on Spotify or Google, but soon to be Apple Podcasts. And if you like us, subscribe, follow, share, and leave us a little review so other people can find us too.
That'd be great.
Great. Have a happy Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.